listening to Arin It Out, a podcast that inspires everyday people to lead with purpose in their careers, communities, and callings. I'm Arin Patterson, TEDx speaker, leadership strategist, and culture architect. I'm passionate about helping people discover their strengths, develop their skills, and do meaningful and fulfilling work. Through honest conversations and real reflections, we'll explore what it truly takes to lead well, not just in the work that you do, but in who you become. Because it's not about the title you wear, it's about the stretch, the setbacks, and the silent wins along the way. Are you ready to grow, lead, and leave your mark? If so, let's begin. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Arin It Out. I'm your host, Arin Patterson, and today's episode, episode 10, is entitled, What is Leadership? And it's also our season 1 finale. Now, over the last few episodes, we've talked about leaks, pivots, dream teams, following well, and leading without a title. But as we wrap up season 1, I want to go back to the foundation, the question under all of the questions. What is leadership? What is leadership? Leadership is one of the most overused and underdefined words in the workplace. You'll find it on job descriptions. You'll find it in conversations about strategy. You'll find it in keynote and motivational speeches. But what does it really mean? Today, I'm referencing an article that I read early in grad school that really struck a chord with me. It's Silva 2016 on the topic of leadership. And Silva defines 5 dimensions of leadership that I want to share with you today. And then before we close, I want to guide you through a short reflection to help you craft your own personal leadership vision that you can carry into the new year. To answer the question, what is leadership? The first dimension that Silva references in this article is that leadership is a process. Leadership is a process. It's not an event. It's a series of choices and interactions that evolve over time. Now, if you all remember from episode 0, I shared with you the story of Graduation Gridlock. In that story, I share with you how I decided to direct traffic kind of just on a whim. I saw a need for it at the end of my brother's college graduation, and there was a lot of cars that were stuck in the parking lot. And I said, what can I do in this moment to help? And the way that I decided to help was to get out of the car and begin directing traffic so that families could get to where they needed to go next after graduation. And so in that moment, I observed what was going on, and I made a decision, and then I took action. And I learned from it. And it wasn't something that one day I just woke up and said, okay, I'm going to direct traffic. But I think there had been a series of events happening not only in my life, but that day that led to that moment that allowed me to effectively lead traffic to get people to where they needed to go. Now, when I think about my own career, from teaching to my current work in higher education, every single leadership role that I have stepped into has required me to be observant, to recognize what's going on, to decide what action I need to take, to then take action, and then go back and refine the action that I took for the next time. And that's all that leadership is. It is a process. It's this ongoing, ever-evolving process where we learn to be better for people, better for ourselves, and better in the work that we do. I would love for you to consider in your own life and your own career how your leadership has evolved over time. What processes have taken place in your life that help show the leadership journey that you have been on for the last few years. Now, the second part that answers the question, what is leadership, is that leadership is influence. Leadership is about affecting others through trust, credibility, and by example. It's not about titles. That day that I decided to direct traffic at my brother's college graduation, I didn't have any formal authority in that parking lot. I was just another attendee of the graduation, and I made a decision. And I was able to influence the course of that day because of the decisions that I made. Now, whether I am leading in my current role within the university, whether I'm leading in spaces where I'm working with campus partners, my impact is determined by how consistent I am and my character. So the influence that you desire to have is going to be impacted by your consistency and your character. I recently did some consulting for an organizational leader, and one of the things that I followed up with her regarding the conversation that we had was that she needs to identify culture enablers. And what do I mean by that? Culture enablers are the people within an organization who have influence regardless of a title. So the people that you know, many of your employees, many people within the organization are going to listen to, whether they're the person at the front of the room, whether they're the person with the highest title, these are the people that you want to get on your team. And in terms of leadership and influence, you've got to understand who are those enablers in the organization that you work in. Are you an enabler? Are you someone who enables the culture to go forward in a positive direction? Are you influential in that way? Because that's one of the standards of leadership. And as you're considering your influence, I want you to think what behaviors increase your influence and what are behaviors that might diminish your influence. Because there's going to be things that you do that are going to be seen in a positive light by your employees, by your by your coworkers, by people that you are working closely with, and there will be things that will diminish it. If you find yourself hollering at people in a hallway, you are diminishing your influence. But if you're someone who knows how to quietly support somebody, you are increasing your influence. The third piece to answer the question, what is leadership, is this: leadership is contextual. Leadership adapts to the environment. Different moments call for different expressions of the same values. What do I mean by that? You know, the type of leadership that I needed to use in a parking lot after a college graduation is very different from the type of leadership that I use in the context of leading a staff retreat, which is different from the leadership that I exhibited when I was in the classroom working with middle school students. It's still leadership, but I have to understand that the context requires a different version of me. And you may ask yourself, Arin, what does that actually look like in terms of my career? Well, you know, the work that I do right now in higher education, it's very focused on operations. It's very focused on systems. And so there's a piece of me that is required to be very communicative in how I interact with people. It requires me to be very systematic and strategic in my work. Whereas when I was teaching, the context was more about being kind uh, with my students, setting clear expectations. And I'm the same Arin in both places, but I understand that the context that is required for an 8th grade student is not the same context that's required in a business setting working with business partners. So I need for you to ask yourself, what context are you leading in today, and what adjustments need to be made for you to be more effective? You've got to understand the context that you're working within. The fourth piece to answer the question, what is leadership, is this: leadership requires acceptance. Leadership doesn't exist without followership. People must choose to accept your influence and choose to follow you. You know, the day where I was directing traffic, the people were listening to me. And that is one of the things my family and I have laughed about many times following that event, is because they knew who I was. They knew that I was just a plainclothes individual with no experience leading traffic. But everyone else in the parking lot didn't know that. They just saw someone who was able to get the job done, and they accepted me as their leader. So cars were stopping as I put my hand up. Cars were stopping, and as I said, come, 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 cars were coming from other directions, and I was able to maneuver around in that space, and the drivers in that parking lot accepted me that day. If you are working in a leadership role, working on a job, and people don't accept you as a leader, you've got some work to do. You've got some work to increase your influence so that your leadership can be accepted. And you'll find that employees and teams will follow leaders who model fairness, who are transparent, who are authentic, and they will not want to follow leaders who do the opposite of that. They're not going to want to follow you if you are a micromanager. They're not going to want to follow you if you're not committed to their development. There's so many things that you can do as an individual that can help level up your leadership ability and being accepted as a leader. So ask yourself this: how are you earning acceptance from those you lead or those that you hope to lead? How are you earning acceptance? And I'll say this, you all know that one of the biggest things for me is building relationships. So how can I connect with people so that they can understand down the road that I am someone that they can lead, that they can follow? The fifth piece to answer the question of what is leadership is this: leadership pursues a common goal. Leadership pursues a common goal. Leadership unites people around a shared purpose that transcends personal ambition. As I was directing traffic, one thing that all of us in that parking lot knew is that we wanted to get out and get out quickly. And because everyone could get around that goal, they were able to recognize that even if I didn't have on a vest, even if I didn't have any formal tools, even if I didn't have a badge, that this person is committed to us getting out of here. And that was the shared goal in that moment. And when I look at my own career, whether it's within nonprofits or higher education, the teams that I have been a part of, that I have enjoyed the most, and the leaders that I have enjoyed working with the most understood this concept of a shared vision and shared values. And it was never just about how can I as an individual propel myself forward. It was always about how can we collectively move forward towards this shared vision. Whether that's a shared vision for an organization, a shared vision for a team, you've got to be on the same page with those that you're working with and understand, what are we working towards? And as you look at the work that you're doing today, ask yourself, what shared goal am I working with my team, with my employees, with my boss, my supervisor? What am I working towards that's shared? And, you all know that I work in higher education. I work in student engagement, and the goal of the entire unit is for us to increase students' engagement at the university. And that comes in many forms. There's many different departments within the area that I work with or work in. And for me, the way that I'm able to help increase student engagement is through the operational work that I do overseeing a facility at the university. So when I think about leadership, I always come back to these 5 things. These 5 things in my mind are foundational for you understanding what does it look like for me to lead effectively. If you can get these 5 premises down, it won't just help you in your career. It'll help you in your family. It'll help you in the community. And whatever things that you are doing, whatever opportunities you have, these 5 things will help you understand leadership more clearly and help you to be a better leader. Let me just recap those 5 things. What is leadership? Number 1, leadership is a process. Number 2, leadership is influence. Number 3, leadership is contextual. Number 4, leadership requires acceptance. And number 5, leadership pursues a common goal. And as you understand those 5 things, you can and you will be a better leader. Now, I don't want to leave you today in this season without providing you with something to reflect on while we're gone, but I want to make this personal for you. I want to help you shape your own leadership vision, something that's going to help anchor you as you grow. And it's based on 4 P's. We're going to look at purpose, people, practice, and promise. And I'll go through these quickly. For purpose, this is the why do you lead? I want you to ask yourself, what impact do I want to make through my leadership? And think about that. What impact do you see yourself making through your leadership? As I think about my own leadership journey and I think about the work that I do, my leadership, I want it to impact on large scales. I want it not to just be, the team that I currently oversee, but I want it to span multiple organizations. I want it to span multiple time zones. I want it to span multiple states, multiple countries, even. And I see my leadership impacting a lot of people. So I want you to write this down and finish this sentence. I lead to blank so that blank. And for me, what that looks like, I lead to empower people to own their growth so that organizations can thrive from the inside out. That's just one way that you can look at it. So again, I lead to blank so that blank. And I want you to think about that. And this will help you define your purpose, the why about your leadership. Here's the second thing as it relates to people, who you lead. Ask yourself, who do I feel called to serve, develop, or advocate for? I want you to list 2 to 3 groups of people, whether it's your team, it's students, it's clients, it's people in the community. And for example, for me, what this looks like, I lead for professionals desiring growth. I lead for organizations desiring long-term change. And I lead for the betterment of communities. So for me, it's professionals, it's organization, it's communities. Strong focus on youth development are areas that I've felt called to serve either now or in the past. Here's a third thing, practice. Practice is about how you lead. Ask yourself, what behaviors and values define how I show up every day? What behaviors and values define how I show up every day? Choose 3 guiding behaviors and link them to your values. And this kind of takes us back to when we discuss core values. This is essentially the practice piece is what are the values that direct how I lead? And for me, I've shared it with you before, but I'll share them with you again. First is integrity. It's doing the right thing even when no one's watching. The second is building relationships. It's all about connecting with the right people. And the third is growth and development, focusing on how I can grow and develop myself for the betterment of others. And the fourth piece is this, promise. This refers to what legacy you'll leave. Now, I have said before, and I say again, I don't just lead for the purpose of leading. I believe that there is opportunity for me to leave legacy everywhere I go. And I believe many times we steer away from the conversation of legacy or downplay legacy because we're thinking so large scale. We're thinking, Bill Gates and creation of Microsoft. We're thinking Steve Jobs and the creation of Apple. We're thinking legacy on that level. But what about a student that I taught many years ago in the 8th grade who was someone she saw herself in me? I did her hair for her 8th grade dance. And she was someone whose life I stayed in up until I recently, just this past spring, she graduated from college. Legacy exists in those small moments like that. It exists in developing a relationship with a coworker, with an employee, with someone that you can mentor, with someone whose life you can help to change. And I want you to ask yourself, when people talk about my leadership, what do I want them to remember? What do you want people to remember or to know about you? And for me, I promise, here's the promise for me. I promise to create spaces where people feel seen, safe, and inspired to lead, to grow, and to build meaningful relationships. That's actually not in my notes word for word, but I believe that's what I desire. That's the legacy I want to leave. So I want you to take some time to go through those. I know some of you guys are probably at work or driving the car right now as you're listening, but I want you to go back and frame this for yourself. I want you to identify your purpose, the why you lead. I want you to identify the people who you lead. I want you to identify your practice, how you lead. And I want you to identify a promise, what legacy you'll leave. And as you write your responses, you can write them either in bullet points or like a paragraph form so that you can revisit this at the start of the year. I truly believe that the end of the year should be preparation for the following year. And as we are already in October and the year is coming to an end very quickly, I think this is the perfect time to reflect on who you are as an individual, who you are as a leader, and what are the things you need to better clarify for yourself so that you can be the best leader you can going forward. And remember, this doesn't have to be perfect, but it does need to be clear so that you can have a roadmap to follow. And remember, leadership is a process, influence is contextual, requires acceptance, and unites around a shared purpose. But ultimately, leadership is a choice. It's a daily decision to show up with intention, with integrity, and in an innovative way. My hope is that you'll carry this conversation into the new year by clearly defining your leadership vision. And not just defining it, but living it. Here's my reflection for you today. This is the actual reflection. I know I've asked you to reflect a lot today, but here's the actual reflection. As you think about your leadership vision statement, what is something that you can intentionally do, something that is actionable, that you can do over these next couple of months as the year comes to a close that would help set you up for success on your leadership journey for next year? What is something you can intentionally do, intentionally focus on over the next couple of weeks and months that would set you up for success on your leadership journey? If this season has inspired you, here's how you can stay connected. Follow or subscribe to Arin It Out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Like, rate, and review. It helps more people find these conversations. Share this episode with a friend or a colleague that wants to continue growing on their leadership journey. And connect with me on LinkedIn or email me at hello@arinpatterson.com to share your leadership vision. I would love to hear what you're working through. Now that's a wrap for season 1 of Arin It Out. Season 2 returns in January of 2026 with deeper conversations, guest interviews, and new tools for growing in leadership, lessons, and life. Until then, stay curious, stay courageous, and keep leading. Thanks again for listening. I can't wait to connect with you in season 2. Have a great day.